So I remote viewed the rings of Saturn, and I'd like to share with you in a moment what I found and discovered. Earlier today, I remote viewed the moon of Saturn, Enceladus, which is credited to form the E ring of Saturn, and it has very deep, voluminous oceans underneath ice, thick ice that kind of protects these oceans and defends the oceans from exuberant amounts of radiation. So I gave my vision of what I saw of like these shahulu or a shahulu inside of the ocean, like a kraken almost, or this massive entity that sends its spores and its DNA through the cracks of ice within Enceladus, and it goes throughout the solar system and actually connects to different life forms. And it can see through these life forms. But since then, I did a remote viewing session on the rings of Saturn, and I've got a lot more information that I'd like to share with you that adds to the picture. So, real quick, I do want to thank my friends over at fighterflare.com. Now, I don't know if you've got one of these yet, but if you go to fighterflare.com, they're so cool because it actually has a solar panel built into it. It has a battery bank, so you can actually just plug in your phone if your phone runs out of juice, and the solar panel works, or you can plug it into a USB port to charge it faster. It's got a compass. It has a seatbelt cutter if you ever have to get out of a car and you're stuck in your seatbelt. It has a glass breaker, and it even has an audible alarm. Get yours today. They're extremely bright. They last a very long time. I've actually used one of these before for over 3 hours on the second brightest mode, and it stayed the same the entire time. So go to, because it's got several different settings, and it's even got, on this side right here, it's got a red and blue light that'll flash if you want to get the siren look going on. But go to fighterflare.com, use the code LEAK25, get 25% off. Christmas is coming up, and these are a must-have in a survival situation. So bug out bag, glove box. All right, now, fighterflare.com, code LEAK25. So I've even got the shaman spear. So from Apollo, thank you, Apollo, for making me this. This is this has got some real cool energy to it. And we usually have fun doing whiteboard sessions. So behind me, we've got the rings of Saturn, and this is how I envision the rings of Saturn. If you're looking at it close up, you're going to see like boxes. You're going to see boxes in different shapes. So I envision like 2 or 3 boxes, and then these diamonds, and also rectangles. But I just filled it out as 3 boxes and 3 diamonds, and they're different shapes. And what happens is, let's take this. So the rings of Saturn are picking up different frequencies and emitting different frequencies that are being sent through the solar system. And they're actually bouncing off of our moon, which is causing an even more interesting effect. But let's take this to the next level. I envisioned the cube of Saturn, which is in the pole of Saturn. I envisioned the cube of Saturn capturing a energy source, and I don't know if you want to call it a Birkeland current or just a very powerful source of energy in the universe that at one point activated Saturn as a star. And this has been captured, and it has taken this solar system from like 4D to 3D. And this is just what I am seeing and what I am envisioning and what's going through my mind. Now, Yahweh kept popping up when I created this cube. And I was like, nah, let's take it out. And then something said, no, you keep that in there. So Yahweh and the cube of Saturn, and then the connections to Sirius. I think that Yahweh, or this type 2 civilization led by Yahweh, came here through this current somehow, captured the energy of Saturn, and now you can see the. Now this is my theory, and I know somebody that I've been talking to for years that is of Jewish belief. He's Jewish, and he said I was wrong about the term Shema inside of the Teflon or the Tefillin, that is the cube that is used in this is the word I'm looking for here. It's used in like worship and ritual, and you'll see like this cube. And I think that cube is representing the cube of Saturn at the pole. And I think that, well, because if you look at Shamash in ancient culture is the star. It's the ancient star. And it's also connected to Saturn. So Shamash is most likely Saturn when it was in its star form. And the new star referred to is Utu. The new star Utu is the sun that we see now, that you will, you'll find the sun symbol in virtually all banks, the logos that they use, and even like credit union organizations, I've seen it, and the sun symbol throughout the Vatican, and sun worship and astrotheology. But if you go back to ancient times, there is much evidence that points to Saturn being a star, Shamash being Saturn when it was activated as a star, and now it's the dark star. And somehow this cube has captured that energy, and it has taken this dimension, it's like lowered the dimension. So we are now in a 3D system. We've gone from 4D somehow, and I don't even know how to completely grasp that, or we have gone from a different level, maybe not even 4D, but now we are in this three-dimensional matrix. And this three-dimensional matrix, I feel, is connected to Saturn and this cube and the rings of Saturn, which once you capture this energy source, you then spread the energy through these rings, which are created from the research that I've done, possibly by like a type 2 civilization. Now, whether this type 2 civilization is creating everything via mind and via spirit, or through technology, or a combination of the two, or through remote control, nano self-replicating technologies that can create these 3,000-mile-long ships that I've shared photographs with you before. Pick up a copy of the Ringmakers of Saturn. Pick up a PDF copy. You can see the photographs and the detailed imagery that was done via Norman Berggren. He was with NASA for, I think, almost 30 years. Don't quote me on that. But even after he wrote the book and published it, he was still with NASA. So, and that's clearly not what they're showing. I mean, they don't want you to think there's anything in space but dust and asteroids and comets. But then when you look at the tether incident, clearly, if that tether was launched in space and not in water, and they tried to make it look like it was launched in space, something became activated. I mean, that thing woke up a bunch of these anomalies, which are massive in size, but extremely lightweight and almost like plasmoid beams because of the resonance of the tether that was launched and the electronic energy, nanu, that was being emitted. So now we go to Saturn, and we take this into a very complex ring system that has different shapes and patterns and shapes and levels and layers that resonate these sounds that emit through the cosmos. And as I say that, I'm getting ringing in my left ear. Okay, it's gone now. But when you've got the moon, and I think that the moon, there's a very strong chance that the moon was actually what created the Great Flood when it was put into place. It was put into place, and then it's like a giant arc. So the earth is going to go through this major cataclysm. They take as much as they can off the earth. They load it into the ark, which looks like this just floating rock. And it's like a perfect observation point and jump point. And now they've got all of this stuff from earth in the ark. A solar flare wipes out much of the earth and the flood. And then when things start to resettle, they can put stuff back out on the Earth. They can resettle it, and they can sit there and observe and see what happens the next time on the next experiment. But now, with these with magnetic layers in space, you've got these technologies like this self-replicating nanotechnology that goes through these magnetic layers, that can travel through these magnetic layers, and wherever these, whether it's spores, biospores, or nanotechnologies, self-replicating nanotechnologies, they will link back at a quantum level with quantum mechanics. So now, so this is the stuff that I wrote down when I was tapping into the ether here, the ethereal, the Akashic records. They also parked the moon, and then I put flood time anyone, question mark. And then as I'm writing this stuff down, I'm listening to Pandora, and I listen to electronic music, so there's not much in words. You know, most of it's electronic. Sometimes words come out in like sound bites and stuff. And as I'm writing this out, this is what comes out on the sound bite. A power, hey spider, a power so great it could destroy worlds. A power so great it could destroy worlds. They parked the moon, perfect station, jump point, observation point, arc, loaded up, and you can tell that the moon's been through all sorts of catastrophes. But it's designed to go through those catastrophes. And then, when it's ready to reseed, it goes ahead and reseeds. Think about the cryo chambers in there. Think about the technologies and this through the centuries and timelines, and so many different species could be within the moon. And this could be something they will set up at different points and timelines through different solar systems where they find life, and they also look at the star next to it and they see if that star is going to go nova, if there's going to be a solar flare or an event. And if they want to prolong the life, then this is a way to do it. This is also a way to regain control. Maybe they park it there, they take everything they want, they let the catastrophe happen, and then they reseed that planet the way that they want to. But when I'm looking at the close-up of the Rings of Saturn, I'm seeing all of these little patterns and stuff that are resonating different frequencies into the solar system, and they're tapping into this cube, which is connected to this current, which activates the star. This is now deactivating the star of Saturn, and they have to continually update these layers and these rings. They have to continually keep them at a specific level to create this frequency to cause a certain response. And then the moon's got some type of like soul recycling center where people will go to their souls go to the moon, and in certain circumstances it just shoots it right back here. They figured out a way to harness the soul, and they've also used karma and war as a way to get people to continue to come back because they're wanting to balance out their previous deeds, or they're wanting to help somebody, or whatever the reason is. But it's a big game of karma. It's a big cycle within a cycle within a cycle. And so when I went back, and I'm referring to our moon, Luna, as far as this soul recycling center. And you can even find some information about how, I think it was John Lear was a part of a remote viewing program where they actually remote viewed this guy that passed in a car accident, and he went to the moon, and it was like this recycling type center. It reminds me of the Cylons. And the very first post that I ever blogged, which is over 10 years ago, was, "Are we the real Cylons?" And if you've seen Battlestar Galactica, the newest series of Battlestar Galactica, you know what I'm talking about. So let me get some water here. Okay. So our moon is a massive arc that was put in place at a specific location. It's got a particular connection with the tides. It's got a particular connection with birthing cycles and menstrual cycles, and it's connected with certain behaviors and patterns. There's a lot going on with the moon and this reflection and the way that it's, most of the outside of the moon is a titanium alloy, right? So it's reflecting this energy back to the earth, and it's creating this like grid, like this matrix almost, this net that's capturing not only the physical bodies, but it's the ethereal as well. It's like sometimes when people are trying to escape the matrix, depending on what level they're at, they're going to come right back here and they're going to do it over again. And people say, well, why would they want to capture the soul or the ethereal body? It's almost like we're pets to this very powerful, extreme, like godlike. I mean, it's definitely a god. Is it the divine, the creator of everything? Maybe. But I'm not convinced of that. I think that it's a representation of divinity. I think it is way beyond what I can comprehend, and I definitely believe it's godlike. But I do not necessarily believe that it is the divine spark of everything. So, but we'll talk about that some more later. But now let's go back to these interdimensional vortexes, right? So you've got interdimensional vortexes and galactic ley lines. Kind of like the ley lines on Earth, you've got ley lines in the universe and the solar system. And so these ley lines throughout the cosmos are like hotspots for traffic. And Saturn, after it was harnessed, and it's still being harnessed, like if the rings started to break away, I think that, and even the Cube of Saturn could be connected to, I think I just envision the Cube of Saturn. If the Cube of Saturn actually leaves Saturn, the rings break up, the Cube of Saturn could be the New Jerusalem that descends from heaven that's described in Revelation. Whoa. So when these rings finally break apart and the New Jerusalem descends from heaven, it leaves Saturn, the cube, and as it leaves Saturn, the colors and the emeralds and the rubies and the gold and the details of the New Jerusalem and how beautiful it is and fascinating. It's so remarkable that words don't even give it justice. So read Revelation and read the New Jerusalem that descends from heaven, and the size and the colors and everything together. So it transitions. So it leaves Saturn, the rings disappear, this leaves Saturn, it comes to Earth, and that is the New Jerusalem. That is what I'm envisioning right now. I could be wrong, but I could be right. So when I say they're milking it, what I'm referring to right here is, they're milking Saturn, but also I'm connecting something with, this is Enceladus, right? So Enceladus is one of the moons of Saturn, and it actually is credited for making the E-ring. And my previous remote viewing session, what I picked up on was like there's this very powerful entity within it, and I was like comparing it to the Shahulu. And in doing so, I was talking about, the spores that it shoots through these vents in the cracks in the ice, because Enceladus it's a small moon, but it has large amounts of salt water. I mean, there's huge oceans underneath this thick ice, which protects it from radiation. Like, so anything underneath the ice is got a lot of protection of radiation from the cosmos. So it could live longer, it could thrive. But I was sensing these like either a octopus entity or a multitude of these octopus-like entities with extreme power that can tap into anything that it connects to through the cosmos with its spores and its DNA that shoots through these vents in Enceladus. But now, when I went back there, and in that last session, I was picking up these so this is what I was picking up that looked artificial to me, these columns of cubes, that are all connected at the center. And these columns of cubes, I went back and I saw inside of Enceladus. And they could be in other places out there as well. I mean, they might even be inside of the cube here. But this is what they're doing. I'm picking up columns of these cubes that are compressing on each other, like, and as they're doing that, they're shooting out like all of these like stars. But when I say stars, I'm referring to like micro stars, very small. Like if you've ever been hit in the head or held your breath too long or something, you've seen stars, kind of like that. but they're manifesting, and this frequency and these harmonics and this energy, all of this energy of these compressing columns of cubes are shooting out of these vents and shooting out through the solar system. And it's a part of this 3D construct that has been restricted, constrained. Now, the archons in the Gnostic text described the chief archon, Yaldabaoth, creating other gods in its image, in his image. And then they made Adam and Eve. And then they made Adam and Eve greater than they were at the time, so they wanted to suppress them. And I'm wondering if what they were doing when they created Adam and Eve, by taking the natural order and combining their own evolutionary process, it created something new that they didn't have, because they didn't have that natural order, such as intuition. And I was talking to Randy earlier today, Randy Liebig, and we were talking about remote viewing, and we were talking about MK Ultra and poltergeists and experiences are oftentimes because people are having these traumatic experiences in their minds, and it's manifesting in physical form. And oftentimes it happens to younger people, and it's associated as well to trauma, and their minds are sometimes like borderline seizures, but they're not having seizures, but EEGs will pick up that electrical energy. So where I'm going with this is, if we take a species that's highly evolved with intuition, and then you give it wisdom and knowledge over eons and add technology to that, you're going to have a conflicting being, because it's a conflicting order. You've got something alien, something outside of the natural order that's been added to it, right? So now it's completely different, and it will fight amongst itself and amongst others, because it'll never have that unity, or it'll take longer to achieve that. And I think that's what we're going through now as a species. But in doing so, it's also got an advantage over its creator, or its, it is the progenitor. It's not the progenitor of all, but it's the creator of that species, the manipulator of that species in a physical form. Then you're definitely going to have some conflict. And that's where you've got these cyclical timelines, right? And we're looking at artificial intelligence and robotics now, and how we're creating machines that are far superior with strength and speed. They don't need to eat. They don't need to sleep. And they can travel through fire, and they can travel at extremely fast speeds. And they do what they're programmed to do. And then we're adding intelligence to these machines, right? Just like they did to us. And then we're going to get to a point where we're going to be like, oops, look what we did. Now they're taking everybody's jobs, or they're taking people's jobs. Now you've got people going to what we created and asking for advice. And then these incredible beings that we help create and manipulate, because life is within everything. You're just manipulating these life forms. So then you could say, well, then that's a part of the natural order. And you could argue that. But there's also these additional situations and opportunities that you're going to have to deal with. And that's what we're dealing with right now. So when you read scriptures that said, let's make man in our image, we've created them like us. They're like us now. Oftentimes, the term gods or God isn't referred to as the creator of everything, the creator of all, the divinity that I take my hat off to, but like a title, like a general manager, or your boss, or your supervisor. It's an amazing time. So, when I went back to Enceladus, I saw this like very powerful entity, right? Like this, like we're looking at before. And something is milking it. Something is taking what it has and using it to their advantage. That's why I wrote, they're milking it. And then here's your close-up of the Rings of Saturn. And the colors I was picking up inside of Enceladus, or inside of these like cubes that are compressing on each other. They're like dark, dark burgundy and like a pale blue. And they're extremely cold. They're tin sounding almost. They sound like tin. They're cold. They're like these metamaterials. And they're compressing on each other. The compression waves create stars. And then this energy and these stars go through the vents and shoot through the solar system. So that's what I picked up. And this is how the star was captured, through the cube. And this is the New Jerusalem, I think. Now, going back there and picking up on this. Once again, I could be wrong, but I could be right. And then I go back to this entity, this being inside of Enceladus, or Enceladus itself. Maybe it's Enceladus itself. It's like the heart. That's what came to me. It's like the heart. And I believe whatever it is that's doing this, or that came here, I believe it came from Sirius. And I believe it's a type 2 civilization. If you, like, one of the best ways to define these incredible, magnificent, angelic beings is like a type 2, maybe even type 3 civilization, except for, here's the thing. If they're using technology, then I don't know if that is the highest level of God, the highest level of divinity. Because I think, or even the higher, the super high levels, because I think at that point, your biology is beyond any technology. Your mind is beyond any biology or technology. Your mind is your spirit. You can think it, you can do it. You don't need technology to do it. You don't need a ship. You can be the ship if you want to. You could be whatever you want to be at any time or point in space. You could be space. You could be multiple spaces at multiple times. And that is the divine light in expressive thought as of right now through my perspective. And this is what I've envisioned. So thank you for listening. Let's keep being the change, and let's ascend with the divine light of source, or do whatever you want. But remember to be excellent to each other, and remember to be the change you want to see.